I've seen images that haunt my mind. A graveyard of giants swallowed by a prehistoric flood. In southern Alberta, Canada, lies a place known as the Drowning Cemetery, where the bones of thousands of Centrosaurus dinosaurs are packed together. It's a macabre photograph of a moment of natural horror, frozen in time. These fossils tell stories that go beyond just science. They speak of agony, the desperate struggle for survival, and endings both brutal and tragic. I've spent years studying these silent witnesses, and the more I learn, the more profound their stories become. Consider the Centrosaurus, a medium-sized herbivore that lived during the late Cretaceous period, around 76 million years ago. They were creatures of habit, moving in herds with a rhythm perfected over centuries. But one day, in what would become southern Alberta, their world turned to chaos. Heavy rain transformed their familiar territory into a nightmare of mud and raging currents. The ground, saturated and unstable, began to give way. Caught by surprise, the Centrosaurus tried to escape, but their panicked flight only led to more destruction. Those at the front were the first to fall, many trampled by their companions. Others were swept away by the flood, dragged into lower areas and buried alive. Some, the young or already weakened, simply couldn't keep up. Death came swiftly for some, agonizingly slow for others. What remained was a tangled mass of bodies, compressed under tons of flesh, bone, and earth. Then silence. Decomposition gave way to fossilization, and horror transformed into a geological record. Millions of years later, humans would carefully excavate that soil, revealing an unprecedented discovery. More than 10,000 bones belonging to a single species in a single location. The scientists who studied the site concluded that this wasn't the result of deaths occurring over generations, but a single, sudden catastrophe that wiped out an entire herd. The uniformity of the fossils, the lack of erosion on the bones, and the absence of signs of predation all pointed to a scene of urgency, desperation, and tragedy. Then there's the story of the Triceratops horridus, a giant herbivore with 3 sharp horns and a protective bony frill, one of the last dinosaurs to walk the earth. One particular fossil tells a dark tale of pain, survival, and violence. What caught paleontologists' attention was not just the well-preserved skull, but the perforations located in vulnerable areas of the facial bone. These perforations, when analyzed, revealed a specific pattern, a curvature, a spacing, a depth compatible with only one living creature of that time, Tyrannosaurus Rex. The powerful jaws of this predator could exert a force of more than 5 tons, enough to crush bone and tear away chunks of flesh. But what makes this case so intriguing is that the Triceratops did not die at the moment of the attack. The bone surrounding the perforations shows clear signs of irregular growth, a biological reaction to the body's attempt to heal, an inflamed type of bone callus, typical of infection. The Triceratops survived. This discovery changes the traditional narrative of the late Cretaceous food chain. Instead of a simple predation scene, we are faced with a more complex drama: the attack, survival, infection, continuous pain, and finally a slow death. The skull becomes a witness not only to a brutal fight, but also to the resilience of a wounded animal struggling to carry on. The disorganized bone growth indicates that the body reacted however it could to the severe infection. This inflammatory response is a clear sign that it lived for several weeks after the attack, perhaps even months. Every movement of the jaw, every bite of leaves or branches must have caused excruciating pain. Finally, I think of the Gobi Desert, where one of the most dramatic testimonies of the age of dinosaurs lies frozen in time. I find myself returning to a single image, a Velociraptor, forever frozen in combat. Leg raised, its killing claw is driving into the neck of a Protoceratops. The herbivore, in its final act, bites down on the attacker's arm. Neither would survive. It's a moment of mutual death, preserved in sand, rich with minerals, compacted over millennia. This fossil doesn't just show shapes or give names. It reveals the precise instant of a struggle for survival. Now, imagine a scene 66 million years ago in what would become Montana. The sound of death echoed, a dull impact, muffled, but carrying unimaginable force. It was there that a Tyrannosaurus Rex, the supreme predator, met its end in a shocking way. The fossil, nicknamed Pex Rex, tells a story unlike any other. Scientists analyzing the skeleton discovered a massive puncture wound in the neck, precisely where vital arteries, the trachea, and crucial muscles supporting the head were located. It was as if a spear of bone, a Triceratops horn, had been driven straight into the animal's vital systems. The scene forms in the minds of paleontologists. A close-quarters confrontation, a hunting attempt gone wrong. The greatest terrestrial predator had become prey. Bone fragments around the puncture suggest the impact was deep, piercing soft tissues, blood vessels, likely perforating the trachea. There were no signs of healing, meaning the blow was fatal, the direct cause of death. This fossil, discovered in 1997 and nicknamed in honor of the ranch owner where it was found, continues to fascinate scientists and the public alike because of its story, its end, its silent message written into every fracture, every shattered bone. Then there are the dinosaur cemeteries, unearthed in many parts of the world. Skeletons tangled together as if the animals died trying to escape. And that's exactly what happened. They tried to flee, to survive, but there was no time. Sandstorms, violent floods, mudslides, sudden, merciless natural forces that transformed the landscape in an instant. Entire dinosaur families, from juveniles to adults, preserved side by side, their deaths bearing witness to collective panic. These were not natural deaths, isolated or spread out over time. They were sudden events, catastrophic moments, when nature turned against its own children with devastating fury. In China, entire groups of Psittacosaurus have been found piled together in layers of volcanic sediment, buried alive by ash from a sudden eruption. In Mongolia, sandstorms engulfed dinosaurs mid-motion, their poses revealing final attempts to escape inevitable death. And in Madagascar, a mudslide captured an entire group of Majungasaurus. Even discoveries in North America show similar patterns. At the Morrison Formation, remains of Diplodocus and other sauropods appear grouped, suggesting entire herds were wiped out at once by sudden floods. These sites show us how dinosaurs lived, how they organized themselves into herds, families, and social structures, and how, even in groups, they were vulnerable to the power of nature. And then there are the Pachyrhinosaurus, crushed in a stampede. In the petrified silence of time, a tragedy unfolded beneath the darkened skies of ancient North America. These bones belong to Pachyrhinosaurus, a gregarious herbivore whose head was adorned with thick bony bosses rather than sharp horns. It is not this animal's appearance that draws attention. It is the way it died. Paleontologists carefully excavating a vast rock formation in what is now the Canadian territory of Alberta encountered a macabre scene. Dozens of Pachyrhinosaurus fossils stacked atop one another, with bones crushed and fractured. I find myself haunted by the image of a herd of Patrinosaurus, peaceful herbivores usually, reduced to a panicked frenzy. The fossil record tells a terrifying story of a stampede, not a simple fall or predator attack. The fractures on their bones, the compression marks, they speak of chaos. Imagine dozens of tons of flesh and bone, a living avalanche, turning into an instrument of death for the weakest among them. The scientists who pieced this together saw a scene of utter desperation. A herd running blindly, perhaps from a wildfire or some sudden storm. Some would have fallen, others stumbling over their bodies. The fossils include juveniles, adults, even hatchlings. A family or some kind of social unit wiped out together. These creatures, gentle as they were, likely cared for their young, maybe even forming protective circles like modern elephants. But against raw panic, no defense is absolute. Not all of them died instantly, though. Healed fractures on some fossils suggest certain individuals survived for a time, even with broken bones. Others suffered acute and lethal trauma. The microfractures show that the force didn't come from above, as in a landslide, but from all directions. A living mass of desperation, compressing bodies. Paleontologists call it herd death, a natural catastrophe that, ironically, preserves fossils so well. Then there's the Carnotaurus with a fractured jaw. Imagine a predator, a force of nature roaming South America over 70 million years ago. Carnotaurus, meat-eating bull, one of the largest, most agile theropods of its time. But even kings have their weaknesses. And sometimes a silent fossil beneath layers of rock tells a story beyond strength and ferocity. A story of pain, struggle, and, perhaps, silent defeat. This particular Carnotaurus revealed a mystery in its jaw, a significant, unhealed fracture. The break was clear, deep, compromising the entire side of its mouth. It would have severely affected its ability to hunt, to feed, to survive. Paleontologists immediately recognized the severity. Not a superficial fracture, but a severe rupture in the lower jawbone. It would have caused extreme pain, making even the most basic movements difficult. The absence of healing was the first warning sign. When an animal survives a fracture, the bone shows evidence of the healing process. New bone tissue, calluses, structural adjustments. But this fossil showed none of that. The fracture was raw, as if it happened days, maybe hours, before death. This led to a grim hypothesis. The Carnotaurus died shortly after the injury. And if that's true, the cause of death might have been even crueler: starvation. Unable to fully open its jaw or apply the force needed to kill prey, it may have slowly wasted away. A predator, once relentless, reduced to a weakened body, succumbing to its debilitating condition. I can almost feel the suffering of this animal. Every attempt to bite, every movement of the jaw sending waves of pain through its body. Each step slower, more hesitant. A predator transformed into a shadow of its former self. Pushed out of territorial disputes, abandoned by prey, perhaps even by its own kind. Then there's the Tyrannosaurus Rex with bones, bitten by another Tyrannosaurus Rex, deep in a landscape fossilized over 66 million years ago. A giant once rested, Tyrannosaurus Rex, the tyrant lizard king of the Cretaceous. But even kings face challenges. A fossil discovered in Montana revealed a fascinating, unprecedented detail about its life. Bite marks on its own bones, made by another Tyrannosaurus Rex. This discovery, surprising and unsettling, sheds light on Tyrannosaurus Rex behavior in a way we could only imagine before. The tooth marks don't belong to a smaller, opportunistic predator. They match the robust, widely spaced, deeply penetrating dentition of another tyrannosaur. This forces us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about their social and feeding behavior. Are we looking at cannibalism, a fierce territorial dispute, or the remains of a meal where opportunity outweighed any social restraint? To grasp the significance of this, we must understand who Tyrannosaurus Rex was. Measuring 13 meters long, nearly 4 meters tall at the hips, with a jaw capable of exerting up to 6 tons of pres, it was more than just a predator. It was a bone crusher. Its banana-shaped teeth could crush not only imagined teeth so powerful, they didn't just tear flesh, but left their signatures on bone. I've seen the photos of fossil remains found in Montana, and the bite marks tell a story. A Tyrannosaurus Rex pressed its teeth against bone with such force, it tore away flesh and fragmented the carcass. For a paleontologist like me, that's like opening a time capsule. But what does it mean? Was Tyrannosaurus Rex eating its own kind? And if so, why? The most widely accepted idea is opportunistic cannibalism. In the wild and hostile environments of the late Cretaceous, food scarcity could have driven even the largest predators to feed on the bodies of their dead counterparts. It's not unheard of. Crocodiles, sharks, even bears sometimes practice cannibalism when they need to. Why would it have been any different 66 million years ago? Another possibility, more dramatic, is a fight between two Tyrannosaurus Rex individuals. Maybe over territory, mating rights, or dominance over a kill. The victor, at the end of the confrontation, may have consumed parts of the defeated rival. We see it today. Wolves, for example, may kill members of rival packs and feed on them. In this scenario, Tyrannosaurus Rex isn't merely a killing machine, but an animal with complex social behaviors where things could get extreme.